Yo, yo, yo. Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? It has been a while since I've posted, quite a while since I've posted. And I had an incredible 2023, and I want to make sure that I kick off 2024 in the right way, in the right headspace. So one of the things that I've done is I took really good inventory of what worked last year, right? I've been on this strengths journey, been coaching, took my strengths assessment in 2019. So at the very end of it, this was like November 2019, and now coming into the beginning of 2024, so just a little over 4 years. And it has done incredible things for me, transformed in more ways than one. Started studying different things, and one of the things that I looked at last year was engagement. And I talked a lot about this, about engagement, understanding expectations, and what it takes to be more engaged. Well, some incredible things happened in my job. Some incredible things happened with coaching. I did more coaching than I've ever done before last year. So it's a great, great year in more ways than one. But one of the biggest things that helped me was really mastering my health. Like I did more things for my health than I did anything else. But it was all because I understood engagement. I really, really understood it and what it looked like for me more engaged in my health. So as I'm moving forward in 2024, I've been doing a lot more studying, a lot more in-depth studying into myself. And okay, what do I want to do moving forward, and what does that look like? Well, I started diving into some books, some great books in entrepreneur. What does it look like to understand, right, the roles and expectations of being a true entrepreneur, entrepreneurism, right? Everything all the layers of it, really what that looks like. And because I wanted to be great at it, I want to be a great entrepreneur, not just to be a great coach, but a great entrepreneur. And so I started diving into, a friend of mine recommended some Benjamin Hardy books. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Gap in the Gain, the Who versus the What, or Who in the 10 times, 10 times is better than 2 times. These are some great books by him. Well, I want to touch on something that really inspired me out of the Gap in the Gain, that I from a strengths perspective. So let me back up just a little bit. One of the things that I have found over the course of working with people in strengths and encourage people to take strengths is many people stop when they identify what their strengths are. Meaning they take the strengths assessment, they get this assessment, they look at their top 5, and they're done, right? They've never even maybe read the report. They just look at their top 5. They don't know the individual uniqueness that's about those top 5, or where to find that information in the report, any level of understanding. They really just kind of stop at that. And then I've tried to, work with them or encourage them to go a little bit deeper, but we start to get, we just miss some of that. So one of the things that I've done is I've learned more about my own strengths, some of the things that hold me back based on how deep I decide to go. And so I want to introduce those of you that have decided to go a little bit deeper in your strengths. Like if you're really looking to go deeper in your strengths, here's a concept here that I've pulled from the Gap in the Gain that I really that has been it's been huge for me to understand, and really from a perspective of being engaged, and also what's holding me back from even more engagement was what I learned from this book. So I want to take time to share this with you because it has been huge for me, and I would not be the person that I want to be, or the strengths coach that I want to be, if I wasn't sharing things that I'm gaining from and knowledge I'm gaining from, that I really believe that you, whether you've jumped on that strengths journey yet, or you're thinking about it, this would be a great thing for you to start to look at and start to realize now. Okay. So let me introduce real quick. Now this right here is a common process that I take people through, right? We have a level of understanding, level of awareness, appreciation, engagement before we get to application. All of these are important steps when it comes time to really fulfilling what our strengths, how our strengths work and how they work within us, okay? But before we get to right engagement, there is appreciation. And this has a lot to do with what I learned, has a ton to do with appreciation. Okay. So in the book, The Gap in the Gain, written by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy is a psychologist who studies, entrepreneurism and all the subconscious behavior to the conscious behaviors of how to become a successful entrepreneur. Dan Sullivan, who runs the Strategic Coach, It's the number one coaching group in the world, and phenomenal information. Okay, great tools. Now, this concept that they talk about in the gap of the gain. So let me just explain the concept real quick. We either look at an experience or a situation from the gap or from the gain, meaning we have we have a goal, we have an ideal, and we have a starting point. Okay. When we look at we have this goal that we set, meaning we want to make this much money, we want to lose this much weight, we want to have this particular experience, okay, of the goal. Very quickly, that becomes, right, this ideal of what we want it to be, what it is, what it has to be, what we need it to look like. And then what we do is when we get to that certain point, meaning it's a 90-day goal, 30-day goal, whatever, at the end of the 30 days, we've hit that mark, then we start to measure the where we hit at that point to the ideal itself. Meaning I wanted to lose 100 pounds in 30 days, yet I only lost 10. So we look at it from a gap perspective, meaning a loss. I mean, we look at the 90 pounds we didn't lose, or the money we didn't make, or the things that we didn't do. And we look at it from a very negative gap perspective. And this right here is what he talks about, is what actually leads to people disengaging or being or letting go of the goals, or throwing goals all out the window, because we don't look at what we actually gained. Versus when we look at the gain, instead of measuring it from the ideal to the goal, we measure from our start to the goal. Meaning, so they talk about measuring backwards. So if our starting point was, we wanted to lose 100 pounds in 30 days, and we had a start of 100 that we wanted to lose, look what we did. We gained 10 pounds lost, right? That's huge. That's massive when you start to look at it compound. But we quit, we stop, we throw out the goals, we say nothing worked, all of these different things, because we look at it from a gap perspective instead of the gain, instead of all that we've done. And he talks about how entrepreneurs, more importantly, do this more often than anybody else, because they're naturally big achievers. They drive for big goals, big visions, and they constantly look at things from the gap versus the gain. They're more prone to things like frustration, depression. They quit on different things because they had this ideal of what they wanted, yet it didn't, the reality or at the end date, they didn't get it. And so it's always a negative, or the gap. So this concept and this idea, I couldn't help but really think about this from a strengths perspective. Like, what does this look like in the strengths, and how does this affect us? So I started looking at this in my own life, go through some exercises and some different things to do. And I started thinking about, okay, what are some of the big experiences I've had in my life? And am I looking at from a gap, or am I looking at from a gain? One of the things, so many of you guys know, right, as if you followed me enough and you know my strengths, my activator. So I have positivity at number one, I have woo, activator, communication, and I have relator. And I've talked about different things about different strengths. And one of the things that I know about activator, for example, okay, people with high activator, they're fearless. They're like, they see this thing and they're like, oh, I'm going to go do this. They don't look for all the details. They're not lost in the minutia. They're just, let's go. And there's a lot of ways in which I still do that, which I'm working on, because I feel like some of that has hindered me, hasn't given me the progression that I want. But in a lot of ways, it's helped me. It's the reason why I became a Gallup strengths coach, is because I'm like, hey, let's do this, right? I'll become fearless about this. So I started looking at some really big memories and some really big experiences. And I want to share this with you because, as you guys know, if you follow me enough, I could do a lot of coaching through my own stories and through stories of other people. I believe within our own stories and our own experiences, we can find an incredible amount of information and data as to what we need to move forward and what's also holding us back. So for those of you that don't know, and many of you guys don't know this, but I want to share this here. I served a church mission. So when I was 18 years old, I decided there was a time in my life. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't go to college. I was lost deep in alcohol, drugs. I was a really tough time in my life, really tough time. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any goals. I didn't know what I was going to do at this point, right? I was out of high school. I didn't graduate. I had to get my GED a few years later, but I didn't graduate. So here I was, 18 years old, and my life was a mess. It was a wreck. So I started looking, to be honest with you, spiritually. I started looking to try to connect spiritually. I started going to different churches, different things, um, trying to explore, right? Where do I want to find something bigger than myself at this point. And I saw a friend, which is now my wife. I was driving, and she was sitting there on a not a park bench, on a bench, waiting to catch the bus to go to Salt Lake Community College. And I hadn't seen her in forever. And I was like, "Hey, Melissa, how you been?" Anyway, so we kind of reconnected, and I went to high school with her. She was right. If you guys know the story, she was my dream girl, my crush gal, but I hadn't seen her in a long time. So anyway, so I just, pulled over and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" She's waiting for the bus. So I gave her a ride to school. She invited me over to her house, and I told her a little bit about what was going on. And so she was wondering if I'd be interested in meeting, some missionaries. And I said, yeah, totally. I'm struggling in life, and I need to get grounded. Well, so I met with the missionaries, and it was definitely came into my life when I really needed it. Ended up getting baptized, joining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was super excited. And they had this. I saw these missionaries, and they had this idea of. They talked to me a little bit about it, because I was 18 at the time, but I had to wait a year to go on my mission, and so I did. I did everything I needed to do. I cold turkey quit all this, cold turkey quit all this. I quit friends. I mean, all I had at that point was Melissa and the new friends I was making. I mean, I literally went a 180 in my life. Well, so I waited my year and put in my papers, and had a chance to go serve a church mission. And I actually got called to Taiwan. Okay, Taiwan, Kaohsiung, Taiwan. And my first area was the furthest southern tip of Taiwan. No, and I mean tip southern. Now, so just to give you guys some perspective, when I joined, right, I joined here in Salt Lake. There was, every block about has a ward building. So, the church is fairly strong, or people know people here, right? So that when I went to these what we call wards, there was a lot of people there. Well, when I went to my first ward, or in this case, branch in Taiwan, it was the branch president, his wife, and his three kids, and then two other sisters, and that was it. That was it. And so I got there. Now, mind you, I'm in here speaking Chinese. I'd read the Book of Mormon through one time. When I was in the MTC, all these other missionaries that grew up in the church, they were talking about all these different things. I had no clue what they were talking about. Literally, I had no clue. They're like, "Philip, you didn't know about this? You didn't know about this?" They're giving me books to read. I'm like, "Yo, I think I've made a mistake, right? I don't know what I'm doing out here." But I went because I realized I was fearless. I believed in something. Something changed my life, and I wanted to go out there and share with the world. And it was just that. It was my communication. It was my positivity. It was my activator coming through that I'm like, I wanted to do this. So I shifted my whole life to go do this thing, and in an environment, learning the language, teaching things that I had really not a whole lot of background about. I just knew some principles that changed my life, and I want to go out there and teach them. So anyway, so I went out. So I'm out there. I'm doing my thing, and I ended up. And most of you guys know this story because I talk more about when I got sick. So ended up getting sick, and I only served about 10 months of my mission. And it was a little bit longer than that because I was, 10 months when I was really out there, and then I was spending a few months where I was living in the mission room because I got so sick, and ended up having to come home, chronic case of IBS. I couldn't hold down a job for 6 years. They wanted to do all this different surgery. I had ulcers from entrance to exit. I was really, really sick. And luckily, I was, my wife and I got married to Melissa. We were able to heal it. I never had any surgery. I don't take any medication or anything like that. But it was a journey. It was a long journey. Now, one of the things, the reason part of it, let's go back to the gap in the gain. One of the things that they talk about is the importance of looking at these experiences. This was a real experience that I experienced. I looked at it from a gap perspective. And when I looked at my mission, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I was angry. I was angry. I was hurt. I felt, and this is in my weakness, right? I felt God had let me down. I felt betrayed. I went inactive for many years, not because I ever stopped believing, but because I was angry. I thought I gave up everything, my life. I was the only member of my family. I did so much thinking that I was going to be blessed or things were going to go my way, and they didn't. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I let go a lot of friends. I told my family I was going to go do this, and I came home broken. I came home extremely broken. I came home frustrated. I was hopeless. And I was completely disengaged from the very things that I went out there. Now, when I was on my mission, I did things like red light contacting. There were things where we just hit these red lights, and I take these missionaries and we'd go in red lights. I contacted people all the time. I set appointment after appointment after appointment. I was a very engaged, a very successful missionary. I loved what I did. I would get missionaries all the time that didn't know what to do, and they'd get sent to me, and we'd go to work. We'd do our thing. And I absolutely loved it. I was enthralled by the work. I wanted to meet people, talk to people, share with people. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't go to college yet. I learned a whole nother language. I could read 1,000 Chinese characters. I could read the Book of Mormon. I could read books in Chinese. This is a kid, again, that didn't graduate high school, didn't go to college. I could speak 3 languages fluently: Chinese, Spanish, and English. I loved what I did. However, when I came home, all I could see it was from a gap perspective. Does that make sense? That's all I could see. I didn't talk about it. I mean, this is the first time I'm going into detail ever, well, obviously with you guys, but anybody that's watching this. But it's not something that a lot of people know about me because I am embarrassed about it. I am frustrated with the way it went. I'm frustrated, and anyone can justify, well, Philip, this, and this, and this, but this is how I felt about it. Does that make sense? This was my experience about it. So what I'm ultimately getting at is that when it comes time to the gap and the gain, I've held on to this experience and I viewed nothing but failure, viewed nothing but negative around it. And when I'm looking at that from a strengths perspective, how am I going to be more engaged? I have not used my quote unquote activator strength to be fearless like I was then. I haven't. I've been holding back in a ton of ways in my life because I'm scared. I'm scared to be embarrassed again. I'm scared to feel angry and frustrated and hopeless. I'm scared to be disengaged because everything I did, my positivity, my communication, my relator, my woo, my activator, I went all in. And when I've looked at it in the past, I looked at it from a negative experience. What this book has taught me is the importance of looking at it from the gain. When I look at what I gained, what I did, again, I could speak Chinese. I don't know how many people can say that. Then I can't anymore. And I probably need to pick it back up. But at that time, I was killing it. At that time, I thought I could go to college. People were talking to me. My mission president was talking about helping me get to go to college. That's not even something that was on my radar at the time because I could speak languages. I was good with people. I was great with people. I was fearless. I was having success, confident. I was hopeful. I was engaged. I was fearless. So I look at this and I looked what I've learned by just this concept of the gap in the gain is I've chosen to take a negative experience that I've spent, now 25 years. I'm 45 years old. This was when I was 20. I looked at that as a neg for 25 years. I looked at all the negative that came from that, and it kept me trapped. It kept me from not being the entrepreneur, the person, the child of God, the father, the husband, the person that I want to be, because I've allowed that to dictate, who I am, and what I'm not. Instead of looking at all the success, that was a pivotal moment. That I look back now confidently as I go through some things. That was a part of my life it was one of the greatest parts of my life. It changed my life, absolutely changed my life. And had I not allowed those negative feelings to creep in, my life would be different today. And so as I look forward to 2024, what I did in 2023, I've progressed over the course of the past 4 years. There's no doubt about it. But I want to make 2024 the greatest year of my life ever. Be even better than what I was when I was 18 and 19, when I chose to do all those things. I want to be fearless like I was back then and choose into something big, choose into something great. My purpose in sharing this with you is not to necessarily enroll you into whatever I'm doing, but to enroll you into yourself and to say, what are you honestly looking at in your life? And you're looking at it from a gap perspective. Was it an experience that you had when you were 20? Was it something that's holding you back in your marriage? Was it something that's holding you back in your career? What are you looking at that you've looked at more from a defeat perspective, from a negative perspective, from a gap perspective, versus look at all the awesomeness that you gain from that? And I highly encourage you to read this book. I've never done anything like this where I could encourage different books, but this has been so big for me in terms of how I've chosen to look at my past to change how I want to view my future. I want to be that Philip. And that Philip, I want to bring the best Philip to. I don't want to allow those things to say, you can't be fearless anymore, Philip. You can't be confident anymore. You have to look at yourself and beat up or lack of success. I don't want to look at myself and feel like that, not a single day again. So I hope this resonates with you. I'm going to leave this up. I'm actually going to upload this on YouTube because this is whether it's just for me or someone else watches it, I believe in you. I want you to know that. If there's anything that Strengths has taught me, and what I love about Strengths is that it's given me a chance to believe in myself, and I want you to know I believe in you. I believe in everything about you. I believe in your awesomeness. I believe in your potential. I believe in your capabilities. And when we really understand our strengths and we understand our natural abilities, our intrinsic awesomeness, our natural talents, and what we can do with them, how they can, if we give them life, we give them breath, and we allow them to flourish, and we help explore different ways to encourage growth out of ourselves. I'm telling you, life is so wonderful and so beautiful, and you're amazing. And you can be whoever you want to be doing in the way you want to do it. I believe in that. I truly believe in that. Strengths has solidified that message in me, and that's probably my favorite thing about it, is that it's given me more hope, and I love giving other people hope for what they want in the future and how they want to live their own lives. And I'm telling you, understanding who you are naturally can dramatically shift that for you, okay? I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for letting me share, and I hope you found value in this. Tell me, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what experience you've chosen to switch from the gap to the gain in, okay? Have a beautiful day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.